What do you do when the person sent to destroy everything you love turns out to be the only one who truly understands why it matters? This story will remind you that real love is never just a feeling, it is a choice made at the highest possible cost, and that the wait for someone brave enough to make that choice can change the shape of your entire life. Amara Jacobs had 48 hours to save her school. The letter was on her desk when she arrived that Monday morning, crisp and official, stamped with a law firm's name she did not recognize. The building at 14 Clove Street, Cape Town, was being transferred to a private buyer. She had until Wednesday to vacate the premises or face legal action. She sat down slowly. Outside her window, children were arriving through the iron gate, laughing in 3 languages: Zulu, Afrikaans, English. She had spent 11 years making that sound possible. Before 1994, she had done it quietly, carefully, at personal risk. Now the country had changed. And someone still wanted the building. The lawyer's name at the bottom of the letter was Simon van der Merwe. He arrived the next afternoon. She had expected someone older, harder. The man who walked through her door was perhaps 35, with pale, careful eyes and the posture of someone who had learned early to take up as little space as possible. He wore a gray suit that was slightly too formal for a Cape Town summer. He introduced himself fully, shook her hand once, and looked around the room as though he was already trying to memorize it before it disappeared. Amara did not offer him tea. She told him what the school was. 63 students, half of them from families that had lived under forced removals less than a decade ago. Teachers who had stayed when better-paying schools tried to recruit them away. A library built with donated books and 2 years of bake sales. She did not say any of this with emotion. She said it the way she had learned to say hard things, clearly, directly, without giving anyone an excuse to call her irrational. Simon listened with his hands folded on the table. Then he said that he understood, and that his instructions were legally binding, and that the sale had already been agreed upon. She asked who the buyer was. He said he was not at liberty to say. She stood up. He stood up. They were the same height, which surprised her. She told him he could see himself out. He came back on Thursday. She had not expected that. He brought documents. Not the transfer papers she feared, but something else entirely: city planning records, lease histories, original property deeds going back to 1961. He spread them on her desk without explaining and waited for her to look. She looked. And then she looked again. The building had been registered under a municipal housing trust in 1974. A trust that, according to these records, had been renewed quietly every 5 years. The last renewal was 1989. Signed by a trustee named Hendrik van der Merwe. Amara raised her eyes slowly. Simon was watching her with an expression she could not fully read. It was not guilt. It was something more complicated than guilt. It was the face of someone who had only recently learned something about themselves that they were still deciding what to do with. He told her that Hendrik was his father. That his father had died in March. That when Simon was assigned to this case 2 weeks ago, he had pulled the historical files as a formality, and found his father's name on documents that had never been mentioned in their home, not once, in 35 years. Amara sat very still. His father had renewed that trust 4 times. Every 5 years, quietly, without taking credit, without telling anyone, he had kept a legal structure in place that prevented the building from being sold during apartheid. It was the only reason the school had survived repeated attempts by the municipality to reclaim it. And yet, Hendrik van der Merwe had also been a property lawyer. A wealthy one. And the land beneath the school, Amara now understood, had appreciated enormously. The estate her father left behind included a silent claim to that appreciation. The private sale Simon was processing would liquidate that claim. His father had protected the school. His father had also, in the end, positioned his family to profit from it. Amara said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "This does not change what you are here to do." He said, "I know. I just thought you deserved to know the full picture." She asked him why. He did not answer immediately. He looked at the spread of documents on her desk, and she had the strange feeling that he was not looking at them at all. He was looking at something much further back. Something he was still trying to see clearly. He said that he had spent his whole life trying not to benefit from things he had not earned. That he had chosen law because he thought it was clean, neutral. That he was beginning to understand it was neither. She asked him if he was asking for her sympathy. He said no. He said he was asking for nothing. He just could not process those documents without her knowing what was in them. She asked him to leave again. He left again. What happened next was not his fault, but it felt like it was. Somebody in the community found out that a Van der Merwe was handling the school's transfer. The name meant something in Cape Town. It meant District 6. It meant bulldozers and forced relocations and families separated across the Cape Flats. By Saturday morning, there were people outside the school gate. Not angry, not violent, but present in a way that communicated something very clear. We are watching. We are still here. You will not take this too. Amara stood at the window and felt something inside her go very quiet. The week before, she had allowed herself to feel something she had not planned to feel. She had noticed the way Simon read documents, carefully, as though every word carried weight. She had noticed that he never spoke over her. She had noticed that he brought her the file not because it helped his case, but because he thought she had a right to know. These were small things. She had built large defenses against small things. But now his name was on a sign outside her gate. And the people holding it were her neighbors, her students' parents. People who had every reason to distrust that name, and no reason at all to care about her complicated, inconvenient feelings. She called him. She told him not to come to the school anymore. She told him to proceed with the transfer through official channels only. She told him that whatever she had thought was happening between them, she had been wrong. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked her, "Is this what you actually believe, or is this what feels safest right now?" She hung up. For 3 days she did not hear from him. She told herself she did not want to. She threw herself into emergency meetings with the city council, into calls with advocacy groups, into drafting a formal objection to the transfer on grounds of community heritage. She was good at this. She had always been better at fighting than at waiting. On the 4th day, she received a document by courier. It was a formal legal notice. Simon van der Merwe, acting as executor of the Hendrik van der Merwe estate, was withdrawing the property transfer. In its place, he was submitting a proposal to the Cape Town City Council to have the building formally reclassified as a community educational trust, with Amara Jacobs listed as founding trustee. Attached was a letter. Not a legal letter. A personal one. He wrote that he had spent a week trying to figure out what his father had actually been. A man who did good quietly and still allowed harm. A man who protected something and also arranged to profit from its survival. He wrote that he did not know how to forgive that, or whether forgiveness was even the right word. But he knew he did not want to be the end of the story his father had started. He wanted to be something different. Not because it would fix anything. Because it was the only honest thing he had left to do. He wrote that he understood as she never wanted to see him again. He wrote that the legal proposal stood regardless. He was not surrendering his claim in exchange for anything. He was surrendering it because it was right. He ended the letter by saying, "I think you were right not to trust me immediately. I think trust should be slow and hard, and I think you have earned the right to set the pace of every single thing." Amara read the letter twice. Then she sat with it for a long time. She thought about what her mother had told her once, when she was young and angry and certain that justice and softness could not live in the same body. Her mother had said, "Accountability without the possibility of change is just punishment with a fancier name." She had disagreed then. She was less sure now. She called him that evening. She did not begin with "thank you." She began with a question. Did he understand that this trust would mean the community had legal authority over every decision made about the school, including ones he might disagree with? He said yes. She asked if he understood that his family's name would not appear anywhere in the documentation. He said that was the point. She asked if he was prepared for the fact that doing the right thing would not make anyone trust him immediately, and might not make anyone trust him at all. He said he was. He said trust was not what he was asking for. She asked what he was asking for. He said 10 minutes. Coffee, if she was willing. Nothing she was not ready to give. She said she would think about it. But she was already putting on her coat. They met at a small place on Long Street, the kind of cafe that had existed before the changes and would exist long after. They sat across from each other and drank their coffee and talked for 3 hours. Not about the school. About everything else. About who they had each decided to become before they understood what that decision would cost. About the difference between inheriting a world and being responsible for it. About how hard it is to love something fragile without controlling it. They did not hold hands. They did not make promises. They walked out into the Cape Town evening, into that particular golden light that falls over the mountain in late autumn, and they stood on the pavement for a moment before going separate ways. He said, "Same time next week?" She said yes. The community trust was formally registered in June 1995. Amara Jacobs signed the papers as founding trustee, surrounded by teachers and parents and children who did not fully understand the legal weight of the moment, but understood perfectly what it meant. The school was theirs. Not on a lease. Not by permission. Theirs. Simon van der Merwe was not in the room. He had asked her, weeks earlier, whether he should be. She had said no. He had said, "Good call." He was outside on the pavement, with 2 cups of coffee. Waiting. She walked out into the sun and took hers. They stood side by side and looked at the building. 11 years of her life. 1 month of his. A history that was either of their faults and both of their responsibilities. She said, "Thank you?" He said, "I didn't do it for thanks." She said, "I know. That's why I'm saying it." They finished their coffee. He asked if she had dinner plans. She said she did not. He said he knew a place. She said she had heard that before. He smiled, and she discovered she liked the way he smiled, careful and a little surprised, as though happiness was something he was still learning to accept. They walked down Clove Street together, past the iron gate, past the children's drawings still visible through the window, past all of it, towards something that had no name yet and did not need one.